Welcome back from our summer recess. We'll call to order the work session agenda briefing meeting for Thursday, July 14th. Couple of notes. Commissioner Flowers and Commissioner Seal are traveling and will not be with us this morning. And then on the agenda, we just have a couple items, but we took chairman's prerogative this morning. Many of us have had the opportunity to meet with or interview with students at St. Pete College's public policy program with Professor Cronschnabel. I could never say his name, Cronschnabel's class. Anyway, we have a student I interviewed with. He was doing his capstone project on our stormwater system and those related issues. And I told him that I thought it'd be neat if he came and presented for a couple minutes to us this morning. So with that, please welcome Alexander Thorstenson. Alexander, if you'd come to the microphone up here and just share a few thoughts from your study that you did. Welcome this morning.
Good morning. Everybody can hear me okay? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. As said, my name is Alexander Thorstenson. I'm currently a student in my final semester seeking a degree in public policy and administration at St. Petersburg College. Over the past several months, I've been working on my public policy capstone, looking at the county's new private sewer lateral policy, with particular focus on the rebate program of the policy. Over these several months, I've had the opportunity to speak to a number of people throughout the county regarding the program, including Commissioner Justice. I also had the opportunity to speak to Tom Nichols, the Gulfport Public Works Director, Kira Barrera, the City of St. Pete's Special Projects Coordinator, Daniel Glazer in County Public Utilities, and Maya Burke, the Assistant Director for the Tampa Bay Estuary Project. I would like to thank all these people for taking time out of their busy schedules to speak to me. It was clear after the sanitary sewer overflows of 2016 that something needed to be done to address the issues of inflow and infiltration throughout the county and really Tampa Bay as large. I would like to praise Commissioner Justice and the other members of the Wastewater Stormwater Partnership on taking proactive measures in this regard. I was similarly impressed with the county's proposed programs to address the issue of private sewer laterals, which seem to be without a doubt the most expansive approach taken by any municipality in the county. There are of course some challenges. In the course of my project, I canvassed the Boca Ciega Ridge neighborhood in unincorporated Greater Seminole, near Seminole High School. My survey results found awareness to be low. That is awareness of the new policies, but more distressingly about what a private sewer lateral is. There's a core knowledge gap. Most homeowners don't know what a private sewer lateral is, that they have one, or that it's their responsibility to maintain it. Homeowners were excited by the rebate, but still expressed concern about the potential costs associated with having an inspection done and the potential of a plumber finding a fault. Homeowners don't want to have to pay for an expensive repair unless they absolutely must. Out of sight, out of mind. Visuals for this reason are so important. They're something that allows for greater understanding and in turn control for the homeowner. I must say I was very impressed by the video created by County Utilities that visualized the problem of inflow and infiltration into private sewer laterals. When trying to get any of my family or friends up to speed on my project, I would show them that very video. The highly publicized sanitary sewer overflows in 2016 still loom large in the public consciousness. It is, however, important to not get overly focused on environmental messaging. Homeowners were much more motivated by messaging related to their own interest in having a sewer lateral inspection done, potential backups, and loss aversion. People are, as ever, motivated by their self-interest. When speaking to Tom Nichols at the City of Gulfport, he provided an interesting anecdote about a plumber who had taken out an ad in the local paper which promoted the city's own sewer lateral rebate program as an opportunity for residents to receive relief. When you have third parties such as plumbers freely promoting your program, that is when you know your program has succeeded. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. Wait, do you have any questions for? Thank you. I think you hit on a lot of the topics that we've been talking about, and having that survey of one specific area was important. The estuary program, I know, is going to be doing an educational program to try and address some of those gaps that you talked about. So you've done well to identify those. Any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for coming here and talking a little bit about your project. Did you find when you were talking to the many residents that, or maybe did you speak to any residents, multiple residents?
Yes, yeah. In the neighborhood there, I knocked on, I think, 171 doors.
Hey.
So we were out there for a few days knocking, with varied levels of, interest in speaking.
Were they aware also that we were thinking about like going into areas and at a time? In other words, we would mobilize an area, work on that area, and make improvements, perhaps maybe a little less costly. Were they aware of that kind of?
Right, and
Yeah.
that's related to the find and fix portion of the program. And that was less so a focus of my project specifically, but there was definitely interest there. I think, as I said, for a lot of people, there's such a barrier on even understanding the problem in the first place. The pipes are under the ground, sewage backs up into my home, I call a plumber, he comes out here, he fixes it.
Yeah.
That's about the end of the discussion. And I think there's definitely, I'll provide a somewhat funny anecdote. One of the doors I knocked on, I start, giving my spiel, hey, are you willing to talk to me? And the woman I'm speaking to tells me she actually works for the county. And she's like, oh, even I wasn't aware of the program coming in. So there's certainly some room and outreach that needs to be done. I know talking to Daniel Glazer in County Utilities there, he talked about some of the things that were being done. But it's certainly an uphill battle, I know, that you have.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Again, thanks for being here today.
Yeah.
Great job. Thank you very much for being here. You're finishing up in the fall or next spring for your, are you done with
Yeah, I'll
this?
say this is essentially the last thing I had to do. So this is it. So
Yeah, well, very good. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And keep an eye on pinellascounty.org for employment opportunities.
absolutely. Thank you so
very
much.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
All right, Mr. Administrator, good morning. What's on our agenda this morning?
Good morning, Commissioners. We have two items on the agenda this morning. The first is an update on the Lellman Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA, and turn it over to Chris Moore to provide an update on the work plan for this next year.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Chris Moore. I'm an Assistant to County Administrator for the Lellman Community. As the County Administrator said, I'm here to talk about our highlights from the FY22 fiscal year and look ahead to our planning for FY23. This first slide, you've seen this before, won't spend a lot of time here, but just establishing the different steps we've taken, creating the CRA all the way on up to providing the County Administrator the same delegated authority he has for non-CRA matters. You've also seen this. This is just the 9 objectives within our CRA plan. So essentially, this is the framework within which we operate, and all the programs and projects you'll see here shortly all must conform back to these objectives. This is the residential improvement program. As you're aware, this and the commercial were the first 2 programs the CRA established. So far this year, we've got actually now 7 applications approved for about $65,000 in funding, and then another 15 plus or so in various stages of the application process, either seeking bids or completing their application. This is the commercial program, so we've received 2 applications approved, a little over $66,000 this year. Have had conversations with another 4 applicants that are at various stages of their redevelopment project that have shown interest in applying. At the end of June, you all approved agreements with Habitat for Humanity to start a affordable single-family home construction program and Rebuilding Together Tampa Bay to rehab homes for residents earning less than 80% of the area median income. Gotten off to a good start even since then. Habitat for Humanity was able to acquire 10 lots right at 28th Street and 54th Ave North, all of which are most all are contiguous and all on the same block, so really great to be able to see that concentrated effort. You'll see a noticeable impact with our investment there. Between that and the 5 lots we conveyed to them, essentially that first year is set in place for their funding, and we'll soon be getting some homes built, and certainly expect a similar result from Rebuilding Together Tampa Bay as they get going. This is the alley program. So we have 2 vendors contracted, one to just maintain the alleys, and then the Florida Dream Center to clear some of the more overgrown alleys. And you can see here the dramatic impact that this can have. The photos on the left, the befores in terms of the thick overgrown brush, the debris obviously in the alleys, but what you can turn it into to the right there, just a very desirable open public space. And so we hope to continue to build on that program as we move into FY23. There's different opportunities potentially for increasing mobility, providing a trail network perhaps, or even different public art opportunities to really kind of activate those spaces and really continue to uplift the overall aesthetic in the community. This is the mural program we had with Creative Palace. So we had 4 murals painted in the past year. Both of these are on 28th Street, right at the industrial park. You can see the before to the left and the after to the right. 28th Street's an important corridor, certainly needs investment. The industrial park has, tremendous redevelopment potential. And so to be able to bring these 2 murals in close proximity and create some visual interest and excitement, I'm happy with that end result. And there are 2 more that we completed this year. To the left is a restroom structure at the Neary Park entrance at 46th Ave. And that one, we will show some other improvements we're making at that site too, but really fun play there for both kids and adults. I'd have to say, particularly if you look closely, the cat with the binoculars, checking out the birds at Neary Park in the Neary Bird Club shirt. It's just a fun play for kids, but obviously extending Mr. Neary's legacy in a playful way. The Lellman mural to the right there, that's at the Lellman Exchange. So that was a generator enclosure. And, with that space, we're twofold, trying to, create community pride and pride in place, but also, change the look of that facility, make it more welcoming and inviting. I think we really checked the box with those. Gotten a lot of feedback from folks about, the Lellman mural in particular, just seeing Lellman's name out there in that way. Gotten some good feedback. In the top photo there, that's the other side of it. It's an event from the YMCA with some of their toddlers there, and those kids walk by that mural every day at drop-off with their parents, and it's just a good message, and really, again, changing the environment, creating that sense of place at the facility there. Here is the Lellman logo that we created. A big thanks to Eric Bell and our marketing communications staff for getting us through that process. A lot of community engagement to get to that point. We're now in the procurement process for the actual signs. I've got one here with me today. So these are the sign toppers that essentially will either go on top of the green and white street signs, or we're potentially looking at a standalone pole for those as well. So we're through the procurement process. They're with the vendor. They're in fabrication. We still have probably, I'd say about 8 weeks before they've said they'll be able to complete them, but the wayfinding signs will go in first, directing folks to Neary Park and the Exchange and so forth. The gateway signs at the top there, we've plucked the lowest hanging fruit, if you will, in terms of the sites that don't have any right-of-way constraints or don't need easements from private property owners or FDOT permits. And so there's 3 that should be going in that 8-week timeline, and then another 5 to 10 sites or so that we'll continue to work through some of those other issues and install those as each one is remedied. Here is essentially the CRA's first capital project. And to the left, you see the overhead aerial, which is 3 lots, on 46th Ave, the parking lot, stormwater pond there in the middle, and a green space parcel to the right. So we have now paved the parking lot. You can see that photo there. It turned out really nice, and that was a long-standing item that the community had requested, so happy to meet that need. The stormwater pond was also an issue that residents had raised. You can see to in the left, there's a lot of green algae overgrowth there and thick brush. Our Public Works crew came in and restored that pond. You'll actually see a video, I think at your next meeting, from our staff, Jordan Bleninger, who led that project. But really happy with that turnout. You can see the pond there now. It's functioning properly again. They put in some new landscaping, and even the wildlife has returned there. So you're seeing the turtles come back, the increased water flow there. So as that landscaping builds out over time, really, again, enhancing that landscape.
You couldn't tell that it was water before.
You couldn't, except for I know, and it really, you see the turtles coming back and the birds starting to frequent that pond again. So literally breathing life into the community there. So the playground equipment is going to go on that green space parcel. It's been ordered. It's, a lot of, these projects have, like any other this year, experienced supply chain and labor issues and whatnot, but we're thinking, September is when we've been told that'll come in and be installed. That Neary Park, the mural is actually on that green space parcel as well. So nice to see, multiple departments working together, the CRA making investments coupled with, Public Works on investments there, and really just a great project for the community. That's right across the street from one of the 2 affordable housing developments we have. The other just down the street, so folks will be able to access these amenities. And then, the park master plan, all that playground equipment is to the north, so these folks won't have to walk all the way around the creek and have access here. So another park improvement project, and Greg Milam with Parks. It's been a huge, a big thanks to Greg for carrying these projects forward here this year. You can see to the left the 6-foot chain link fence there, and even some folks walking by. It doesn't it come across as the most inviting atmosphere there, and we'd heard that from the residents as well. And so able to go in and replace that fencing, put in that wood split rail, and pictures, don't even necessarily do it justice. It really does kind of change the vibe of the park, and that was another one that the community really wanted to see moved, and we're starting to hear that feedback that, thank you for hearing us and making these improvements. Additional investments there. The playground surface will be replaced. That parking lot will be paved, and some new landscaping will be going in the coming weeks. And that too will be, right behind it is the Lellman Heights Affordable Housing Project. So folks will be able to walk into that park. And Lellman's Park Network is really, a key story we hope to tell in the future. Between these 2 parks, Sawgrass Lake Park, the entrance there is in Lellman, and then Joe's Creek, which is essentially a linear park. That's a pretty strong top 4 that we hope to be able to, rebrand the community around. This is from the Lellman Exchange Strategic Plan implementation. So, as you're all aware, we've executed agreement with the St. Petersburg Foundation to a lease and management agreement for that facility, and working to create essentially a collective impact model of partners coming together to provide services to the community. So a lot of early outreach, starting first and foremost with our Lellman community partners and making them aware of the effort and ensuring that they're a part of it, and some good progress there. And, some 45 organizations have reached out to the foundation on their own accord. So I think seeing some real genuine excitement about the effort and the partnership we have in place there. One sort of quick win we have there is an expansion of the PPLC, the Pinellas Public Library Cooperative Partnership. So was actually just talking with one of the foundation staff about what we have in place at the facility there currently with PPLC, which is the access to, in the computer labs, to their e-books and databases and so on. And one of their staff, Amy Ciance, who's kind of the boots on the ground there at the facility, had the, well, why don't we just, what about, can we make Lellman Exchange a pickup drop-off location for the library resources? And, honestly, I sort of kicked myself at the moment. Why didn't I think of that sooner? But in all seriousness, it was just a great idea, an idea of how to improve services there. We talked to Cheryl Morales with the PPLC executive director, and we're going to hope to have that rolling in September. So just that simple change there. Nothing beats going to the library in person, but now folks will be able to order books from the PPLC member library network. Have them delivered to the exchange. They can pick them up. They can drop them off there. Our staff is going to be trained by the Pinellas Park Library System, just how to catalog those and plug into the PPLC system. And twofold there, you're activating the space more, but also certainly increasing exponentially the ability to access library resources in that community. So happy to see that partnership growing there. And the FY23 work plan. So you all received a copy of this as well. I think that next year is really going to focus on a continuation of what we've begun to build here, in terms of really fully activating those commercial and residential grant programs, getting the Habitat and RTTP programs up and running, the Alleyway program, really honing that effort. Less of a CRA investment focus on capital projects next year, We think that's really balanced by certainly the tremendous investment by the CIP and all the ARPA investment. So nice to be able to have the CRA focus a little more on affordable housing and so on, obviously with the need we have there. We do have one program, new program proposed for FY23, and that's, as you see there, a special events program. So consistent with our CRA plan, you know, marketing and promoting the community and also supporting economic development opportunities. I think we'll have some really exciting, you know, news to come in the next fiscal year about some different partnerships we can have with the community and really beginning to sort of celebrate Lellman as a community and all it has to offer. And would be remiss, as always, not to thank our many partners. I think, you know, this slide might be its last run here with the partners we have, and certainly the new partners we'll be adding. But want to certainly thank this commission for, you know, the policy directive that you all have set to make these investments in Lellman, the county administrator for certainly, you know, aligning our resources, and the assistant county administrators that he's brought on board on that team, and, you know, all the directors and all the way down to our staff, you know, for folks to really prioritize Lellman and the work of Brian and Nancy and the other communities, really seeing the difference to be made there. And we, again, are extremely grateful for our staff, you know, helping us get to this point here today. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Questions? Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, well, thank you for the presentation, the update. It's always good to hear about the Lellman community. Clearly, first CRA the county has had, only CRA we have, and learned a lot from other CRAs from around the county, investing in their mostly downtowns. Maybe you could just for folks who might be watching, talk a little bit about the role of the CRA, what that means. Kind of the role of the expanded community has played in all of these success stories, and then maybe just at the end touch on the funding mechanism for what goes on there.
Yeah, well, in terms of it providing a vehicle to increase community engagement, I think that it absolutely has. And, you know, I mentioned just a simple conversation with the foundation staff there about you know, just brainstorming and how that, you know, we like to say with partners you can do more, and just a simple idea like that with, you know, two brains are always better than one. And the same is true for engaging our residents. You know, even some of those, you know, the playground equipment for on 46th Ave, that was, you know, an idea brought forth by a resident. And I think that in both instances, when you're engaging different new partners and different folks in the community, those are the type of rewards you see to come from it. And you know, over time, the CRA Citizens Advisory Committee has continued to grow and build out. And I think they're, you know, doing as well as we ever had. You know, even the latest member you all brought on, Chuck Flint, just another, he's got a lot of experience on code enforcement boards and development review commission in the city of St. Pete. And so really, you know, establishing a strong foundation with that group, really hearing good feedback and engaging them, and our residents as well. You know, there's absolutely a lot more activity and conversation amongst different groups in the neighborhood, and, you know, we're certainly trying to bring all that together, even through the Lellman Exchange and through the partnership with the St. Petersburg Foundation. So in that term, it really has allowed us to, given us a vehicle, again, to engage the community. The funding mechanism side of it, so essentially CRAs, you know, they're 30-year financing tools, and so in year you establish a geographic footprint for that CRA. In year zero, you essentially freeze the tax value of all the aggregate properties there, and anything, any incremental increase year by year is locked in to be spent in that CRA by that plan. And you can see by some of these investments we've made, it really, one, provides a dedicated funding source to fund these projects, but it really allows you to be strategic and come in and with a surgical approach, look where the county's making its other investments in terms of CIP projects. How can the CRA come in and either fill gaps that we're not addressing or layer on top and leverage the existing funding that we have? So it does, it has been very beneficial to the community there.
So, yeah, so kind of that belief factor is growing in the community. So you're getting more and more people that are engaging, as you said, more and more people that understand that the little improvements here start to grow into other improvements here. And I think we talked earlier about the park that's coming. And so that's a good thing. And it's also important to note that the tax base that you talked about in that base year still goes to the general fund, still goes to the MSTU fund. It's the incremental increases that stay there and invest in that community to make it stronger and better. And we've seen it, like you said, all over this county and in downtowns everywhere. So I think this is a really good, it's been a really good story. So appreciate the work and thank you for the report.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Gerard.
Yeah, I see a note in here about bus shelters, about PSTA not having enough ridership in front of the exchange. I'm wondering if we approach them again about altering the percentage match or whatever. I think because we're working on the exchange and bringing more and more activity there, it might be.
Yeah, we have had discussions with their staff, and that program is essentially designed to be a 50-50 match if the stop meets certain ridership criteria. And you know, we've essentially gone through the stops that meet that and also don't have right-of-way constraints, right? So that you may not be able to put a bus shelter there. That particular stop, I do believe they need to move it further away from the railroad track. We've approached them specifically about that one. It wouldn't be eligible for the cost share, but because it's not currently meeting the ridership, but you know, we think it has additional benefit and sort of an if you build it, they will come approach that, you know, just from the exchange and activity, you know, it certainly will meet that ridership criteria in the future, so.
I'll work on that for you.
Further questions? I heard a commitment there, so that was good. Further? All right, Chris, thank you very much. We appreciate the good work. And just as I talk to folks in the community, they are excited about the things, the physical things we kind of think of as maybe small, but are really important. And it's to Commissioner Egger's point, it's that, you know, they've been talking about now we're actually seeing things that we asked for, things that are improvements. That parking lot on 46th Avenue, when that was completed, that blew up Facebook for a couple days. People were excited about it. I mean, it seems like a simple thing, but it really was important to the folks that use that park. And if you're on Facebook, there's several groups that follow the activities in the park that are really neat to follow. A lot of bird watchers and others that it's exciting to see what's going on there. So, and then the activities that we know are coming, I think are just the next step. And we're a lot of good things coming. We appreciate the good work.
And I appreciate that, and I did have a note to speak to some of those Facebook comments, and it is the simple things that you might not think are as big a deal, but to the community they are. And even one of those posts was from a woman. There's two folks that are, you know, wheelchair bound and access the park, and she just put a comment on there about thank us so much for putting this in there. She's no longer going to be in pain crossing the rocky parking lot coming in there, and so absolutely made a big difference in her life, and certainly the community was excited about it. So thank you again, commissioners. Thank you, county administrator.
Thanks, Chris. All right.
Okay, Commissioners, moving on to the agenda for Tuesday, July 19th. So this is, I'll just start, you know, from the top. We have some presentations and awards, National Parks and Recreation Month proclamation, Employee Recognition Award, and the AARP National Network Age Friendly Award. So so we have folks here recognizing those. We have Circuit Court Controller minutes and vouchers. We have reports received for file. We have miscellaneous items received for file. And then we have County Administrator receipt and file. And then, as I said to you, one of those items is the agreement between us and St. Petersburg for sharing the cost of Inner Circle Sports, which is our stadium consultant. Item number 15 is the ranking of firms and agreements with professional engineering services with DRMP for the 13th Street Bridge replacement. This is down in Tierra Verde. And with Kissinger, Campo and Associates for the Madonna Boulevard Bridge replacement project. Total of the two projects is just $1.97 million.
16 is receipt and file of the lawsuits that have been filed recently. Just for your information, there are a couple of trip and falls and a car accident on there.
Item 17 is receipt and file from the Law Enforcement Trust Fund and Sheriff. Onto the regular agenda. Item number 18 is a change order number 1 with Creative Contractors. This is for the design build for our courts consolidation projects. This is a significant one, $877,000, and it's related to the fire alarm system. When they originally scoped the project, they thought the existing fire alarm system could be tied in, and it can't. And so as a result, that requires a new fire alarm system. And so significant change, but necessary for public safety. And so that's what that item is about. Item number 19 is a Fourth Amendment to the Economic Development Funding Agreement. This corrects a Scribner's error on the funding amount for the third agreement. And so it just clarifies that it's $218,750. That was just a Scribner's error. Item number 20 is a historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption on 2 recently rehabilitated historic properties in the city of St. Petersburg. The first is a residence at 801 28th Avenue North, formerly the Grace Lutheran Church, and residence at 326th Avenue North, designated as a contributing property. So, item 21 is a resolution certifying that housing projects constructed by Habitat for Humanity of Pinellas County are consistent with local plans and regulations. We have to do this per Florida state statutes. We have to tell them that they're in compliance. So, item 22 is interlocal agreement with the city of St. Petersburg in support of the intercity Cross Bay Ferry. As you know, we requested to make modifications to the agreement. We sat down with the partners. They were interested, they wanted to keep it going, so they really didn't want to open up the agreement. However, they agreed to assume a larger share. So this resolves that issue. It makes a one-time contribution from us for $129,500 for the 3-year period. And then the agreement, and it's in their bailiwick to manage it throughout. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry. On that issue with regard to the ferry, so this contract is going to be in place for 3 years, right?
Yes.
So in that time frame, are they moving towards working on or have plans to move toward electrification of their engines on the boats?
I don't believe they're working on that at all. They're applying for boats and federal money, but Jill, if you want to speak to it, but those are probably 4 years out, even if they order them now. The issue really the issue came down to, we wanted to open up the contract, okay? They really weren't interested in doing that. And so the partners just agreed to pick up a bigger share. So we really didn't discuss about that because Hillsborough County was taking the lead. And so they may be having those discussions for the future, but in terms of under this contract period, really none.
That's absolutely correct. The only thing I would add is they have verbally acknowledged that that is a future goal, but not necessarily for this agreement term. But they have acknowledged that.
I'm kind of assuming that everything that was in the agreement last year is just exactly the same.
Correct.
The only thing that's changed is our contribution.
That's correct.
As
That's
far as-
correct. And by virtue of ours, theirs. And
Right.
That
DOT's
is
back,
correct.
so.
So it's just that point. I mean, there's no
Yep.
hours, service,
They were
all of that kind of stuff.
They
is
didn't
all the
want to
same.
open up the agreement, to
Yeah.
be real blunt. And so they didn't want to open up the agreement, so therefore we still don't know how much money they bring off of concession revenues or anything else that are not included within the agreement, which is kind of the basis for the reason we wanted to just sit down and start fresh. That's fine. They were picking it up, and, at the end of this 4-year period, it'll be we'll look again and see where they're at with the service. Nobody's ever said that it wasn't a good service. It is, and we wanted it to continue. We just wanted, a different structure, but the partners are picking it up, and that's their prerogative. And so this I think is a reasonable way of approaching it, and there were some reasons for that. I mean, I don't want to just put it back on them that they didn't want to. They, for what they're doing over in Hillsborough is very different for ours. They're looking at Tampa service. That's direct, that's daily service. So there's some reasons they didn't want to open it up. I don't want to just say, but this was just one piece of it. And they liked the structure and they were moving forward. They agreed to pick up the cost disproportionately, so we're picking up kind of outside the St. Pete. And so that was what was agreed to, that we would recommend that we move forward.
Anything further? Commissioner Eggers? Microphone.
Thank you. What we originally had in the budget for this coming year was 190,000.
Correct.
And what we're proposing is 38,000.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure. And
But ours is we're gonna pay all 3 years up front. So we're gonna pay $129,000 this year, and then we're done, we're out.
that covers the next 3 years.
Correct.
38, 40, and 51
Yes.
for those 3 years, instead of 190, 190, 190.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Peters?
So I'm not sure why we're doing it for 3 years. I thought this was a 1 year up.
No, the agreement that we signed last year was a 4-year agreement. If you recall, LAC, we got at the last minute last year.
Yeah.
So we really didn't have time. We said, okay, we'll sign it, but we want to set back down since we weren't, didn't have time to engage with them. So we tried to set back down after the budget, after you signed that 4-year agreement, and kind of open it up and renegotiate. They said they want to continue with that original 4 years. So there's 3 left on that original 4-year agreement.
See, I supported getting out of it altogether, and I'm not sure why we're getting into it again after it was pretty consensus we wanted to get out of it. And if you want to keep that, commitment for this year to finish up this year when you renegotiated it, why? I don't get it. I mean, I just don't get it.
Well, we were concerned about the amount, okay? So
Well, we were concerned about a lot of things. They never did what they promised. They've not been good partners. And so I don't understand why we're giving them, I don't know why we didn't get out of it to begin with. And that's just how I feel about it. So many of us were disappointed in them, and I just don't know why we're doing 3 more years, even though it's a lower price, and I can live with the price, but I don't know why we're continuing it for 3 years. And I know when 3 years is over, they're going to come back and they're going to want more money. They are. They're just going to do it. And they're going to do the exact same thing that they've done in the past. And I don't understand why we're continuing to play this game with them. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I won't be here Tuesday to vote for it, but for the record, I'm an absolute no on this. Absolute no on this.
Commissioner Gerard?
I just wanted to say, I think the 3-year commitment or payment ahead of time is great. That means we won't have to talk about it for 2 more years. And yes, I'm sure they'll be back, but we won't have to deal with this every year in the same sort of half answers that we get.
And we're just funding partners now with the city of St. Petersburg. So,
Yeah, that's good
we are
clarification.
out of the rest of the larger deal. And this was important to the city of St. Petersburg. They were very facilitative and supportive.
I thought at the end of the time frame, at the 4 years, it was there was no subsidies after that, according to their
Well-
plan, I haven't looked at the slides in a while, but
Well, that is what they stated. Of course, they stated that in the original agreement, too. So, I mean, there's so many unknowns. They're saying they're applying for federal funds. They say they're going to get state funds. If they're able to get access boat funds to buy a boat, obviously that's a major contributor to the cost. There's a lot of unknowns. If they get the ridership up, is it going to subsidize? That's the reason I wanted to open up the agreement. We wanted to be at the table. But again, I don't want to, we can talk about whether the agreement is right or wrong, and certainly, if the majority of the commission feel differently, then we won't do it. But the issues, what our original intent was set down and make this a more transparent contract. But the issues are different between what we're looking at and the group that's really driving this, which is Hillsborough County. They've got a structure and they're working on their South Tampa access, and so they didn't want to open that up, because of the structure they're already working on, and so they were looking at it differently, and so this was a way to contribute. St. Pete asked us to kick in proportionate to the amount of ridership that's outside St. Pete, and so it was a way of, dealing with it, but we weren't going to open up the contract. So our choice is we either get out of it altogether or we give a little bit of money and we're out altogether too. So that was the choices we had to make. There was no willingness to meet with the original intent of what we were looking for.
Commissioner Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with a lot of what Commissioner Peters said, because, you know, the whole thing just doesn't sit right with me, the way in which this all happened at the end, number one. Number two, it was like pulling teeth to get any information about the details of the contract. And number three, it should not be a surprise to anybody that we wanted to have a seat at the table in negotiating this contract. We were very clear about that more than a year ago when we got into it originally. And number four, and most important to me, I am tired of hearing the language, "It's not there yet." I promise you, there are places in the world right now, today, and in this country where they have ferries that are being run by electric power. And why on earth we would continue on with a company who stood right in front of us and said they were the preeminent company in the world on the future of ferries and waterborne transportation. And I do think it's important to remind everyone that on Forward Pinellas, we have established a waterborne transportation committee, which has been very effective in moving forward on procuring federal money for the boats and for electrification of the engines. And so to say it's not there yet and we can't do it, that's just putting your head in the sand. That's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Commissioner Eggers.
Well, I don't disagree with your all's thought process at all. And I do think the last point you brought, which is what I was going to bring up, is that on Forward Pinellas, we do have this group that is working on what I would call, you know, waterborne transportation for Pinellas County. I mean, we're looking at intercoastal primarily. We took a back seat to that group in terms of filing for federal funds this past year for capital. And all I've been hearing is that they're going to continue filing for capital, so they're not going to take a back seat to allow this group to file for capital. I just feel like for a lot of reasons, the partnership needs to be you know, I don't think we need to have that partnership going forward, so I'm not very supportive of it either. Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah, I think, you know, I was excited about the South Hillsborough opportunity for opening a market to downtown St. Pete that didn't exist. You know, folks that live in that part of the world probably don't make that trip around to downtown very often, but to have a ferry access, that was the part last year that got me excited about continuing to do the ferry. And, but the communication is what it is, and it's disappointing that there wasn't what we've said for multiple times, and this year we finally called the bluff, I guess you'd say, and there wasn't a willingness or a desire, because I think there was opportunities for us to be better partners or bigger partners, but that's not the path that they chose, and so on Tuesday you'll have the opportunity to vote for the agreement in front of you. Thank you, Mr. Administrator.
Item number 23 is a second resolution determining the necessity to construct bridge and drainage improvements to Beckett Bridge and Riverside Drive. So this is actually, you're seeing it for the second time, and that's because they had some adjustments into the easement areas that we needed. It actually reduces the size in some and it adds some detail in others. It corrects a tree location, et cetera, and stuff. So it's the second time you've seen this item, but it's minor modifications.
Yeah, anytime I see the word condemnation, I worry about. So it means that we didn't come to an agreement. So tell me a little bit about that as opposed to.
Well, you saw this before. It was on before, and so when we go into this area, we know that we're going to do a project, and we, you know, obviously have all the legal steps we have to take to try and resolve issues. But it ultimately, if we're unable to do that, it gives me the right to declare and condemn property to be able to take that to be able to complete the project. Otherwise, we would never be able to complete the project. And so that's a traditional way of doing that. We use that only as a last resort. And I would have to see, but do you know of even any possibility of doing that? I think we've resolved most of the issues.
Yeah, there's a map here that has some, I don't know which map it would be best to look at to see where we are talking about buying or versus condemning. So is there a map we can look at?
There is. There's a map attached, and there's also there's a memo that relates to the permit status. And much of this is related to how we're going to fund, excuse me, and permit the project. You have to identify this as a tool that you would use in the event we can't resolve it any other way. So that's the real reason behind it. And, you know, the only thing better than having to have done this back in April is to do it again in July. So there are modifications that we have to make. They are, as Barry said, they're a little bit smaller. We found some survey conflicts, but it otherwise essentially remains the same as what you did in April.
Jill, there's a map that has a lot of red markings on it. Is that the area that we're talking about?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
And it's mostly for sidewalk?
That's correct. As y'all recall, the Beckett Bridge work area is very, very tight, very limited.
Very, very tight.
Okay, thank you. I may call you on it. Thank you.
Yeah, if you have specific questions, and if you want to see if there's like problems that they're having, you know, we can get a public works staff.
I would like to do that. Please, thank you.
Item 24 is an agreement with Howmatica, whatever corporation, Stryker Sales. This for hydraulic stretchers. This does 11 hydraulic stretchers, 17 chair pros. This is out of the EMS Trust Fund. Item 25 is a service order to increase the upset limit for a contract with Charter Communications. This is for their Ethernet wide area network services. This is adding to an existing contract. Item 26 is a resolution approving issuance of multifamily housing revenue bonds with the Housing Finance Authority to finance Seminole Square multifamily residential rental housing program. This is 96 units constructed in Largo. Total amount not to exceed $17.8 million. No county general funds are part of this project. They have applied for penny for Pinellas. County Attorney?
Under item number 27, I do have a copy of the confidential memo if any of you all are interested in reading it. I did not pass it around today because I know that each of you have had the opportunity to meet with Christy Pemberton from my office and Kevin Knudsen from administration to go over the details of this settlement. You know, that said, we're still here to answer any questions should you have any in advance of Tuesday. Under item number 28, this is a request to file litigation in the case that is noted. This is a situation where some homeowners were having some work done at their property and the contractor used too much fill and it went into our sewer line and damaged it. We have been unable to get that repaired, and so we are requesting your authority to file suit. Under item number 29, this is a resolution approving the public participation guidelines that were presented to you at a work session about a month ago. I do have Kia Townsend here from my office, who you saw then, who can answer any additional questions that you may have. But we have provided a pretty good summary of the changes in the board memo. And, you know, as I referred to, you all did have an opportunity to hear about this and discuss it at a work session. And I am not anticipating any reports.
Item 31 is a small item called the 2023 proposed budget. And so on Tuesday, we'll have a budget presentation outline the recommended budget that you'll be having hearings on over the next couple months. Okay.
No presentation today, then?
No presentation today. We'll do it all on Tuesday, and we'll have a formal presentation and outline the budget and things like that. Answer any questions you have, though. Okay, item 32 are appointments to the Parks and Conservation Resources Advisory Board. You have 2 appointments. Item 33, appointments to the Construction Licensing Board, one appointment. Then you got County Commissioners' new business. Going over to public hearings, item number 35 is a countywide map amendment in the city of Clearwater for retail services to Activity Center, 6.15 acres. This is 2 vacant parcels on the east side of Highway 19, south of Sunset Point. They've entered into an agreement for an annexation agreement with the applicant to facilitate the development to multifamily residential development. Item 36 is again, the city of Clearwater, a map amendment from public, semi-public to residential low medium. This is a parcel that's vacant but was previously occupied by a single-family residential that was demolished. They're requesting a map amendment and part of an agreement with Habitat Humanity to facilitate the sale, and 3 contiguous properties that are not part of this amendment to build workforce housing. Item 37 is a City of Dunedin countywide map amendment from public, semi-public to recreation open space. This is 8.97 acres. This is 3 parcels located on the southern boundary of Hammock Park. 2 of the 3 parcels are part of the City of Dunedin's annexation from the land from the Diocese of St. Petersburg. The 3rd parcel is a small, narrow parcel they want to combine. And this would all be going to open space. 38 is a resolution adopting a non ad valorem role under the state's uniform non ad valorem collection method. This is a special assessment to complete the dredging of the Hidden Cove Oak Street retention area in unincorporated Clearwater. You may recall this property. This is the whole subdivision drains, but the way it was set up, 2 property owners own it. And so we worked with them on a special assessment to be able to pay this over time, because the way it's set up is those 2 owners own it, and the other neighbors were not willing to participate. So this is a way of helping them get this done, but we let them pay it over a longer period of time than we might normally do because of the impact. 39 is a resolution approving the fiscal year annual action plan for community development, home investment, emergency solutions grant. We do have to modify this, as you read in the paper. Grace House is being sold for affordable housing, so we're going to have to remove that portion of the appropriations. So I've asked staff to be able to prepare a 1-pager that you can incorporate into your approval on Tuesday. And that is it on the agenda.
Any other questions? On the agenda or anything for the good of the order?
Yeah, just one item, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Barry, I was going to wait to talk to you about it when we get together, but that's a week away. I really have a resident in North County that it's been some issues trying to let his dog run without a leash in a park. And so, the essence of it is that I guess it's gone to our Parks and Recreation Board to at least have the discussion about how can we address, you're not talking about a dog park, we're talking about something where they can really run. I know I suggested to the group through Paul that in Dunedin, there's a park near the Hammock, just a park that they've isolated for that use, a couple of hours in the morning and a couple hours at night. Brief usage, weekends you can't do it, but you go out there and you can let your dog run. Obviously, it has to be under control, voice control, and all of the things that go along with that. And so I guess my question, it was kind of legally based. We've talked a little bit about it, but it's also more policy based. And I asked them to consider a South, Mid, and North County park where we might provide that kind of opportunity And so I'm not quite sure how to move this thing forward for discussion. Certainly, I'd like to have it here a little bit, but I'd like to staff it first and just see what possibilities there are out there. Are there areas within I don't mean just the whole park, like, let's just say John Chestnut Park. You let a dog run, off leash for the whole park, but perhaps isolating an area within the park that, that we can at least allow for a period of time for folks to do that. So anyway, so I bring that up not for necessarily discussion today because it's not, quote, staffed, but
We can certainly staff it. You have raised this issue before, and I just discussed this with Paul. It really comes down to a staffing issue. You got to enforce it. And so if you're going to establish hours, well, then you've got to be out there to enforce those hours. And so it's kind of a staffing issue. Legally, I would defer the county attorney's office in terms of we let dogs run loose and then they attack someone or another dog or whatever, is there liability on our behalf? I really don't know the answer to that, but I see Jo coming up, so maybe she's had more discussions with Paul about this.
I just wanted to share one alternative perspective that the Parks Board and Paul have heard from as well, is that that's from some of our naturalist groups who, there's a reason why we fence the dog parks, because they would not want us to see disturbance of wildlife or other, birds or tortoises or anything else from dogs. And so that brings you full circle to Barry's point, is that we would have to staff it. And even if it's a few hours a week, it requires an alternative model. So, but there were interests expressed to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board that related to a different perspective about the environment itself. As a parent of someone who had a child that was terrified of dogs, I wouldn't have been able to take my child to a place where dogs are running, open. But we're familiar with the Dunedin example, and we were happy to go back and take another look. But it did go to the Parks Advisory Board because we didn't want it to just be the staff. So Commissioner Eggers is aware of that. But there are some other considerations beyond just what it would cost us in terms of resources to management, because there would be potential opposition. We do provide numerous dog parks for the county, and if we didn't have those, then I think our staff might feel a little differently about it. But it does limits the animal's activity. But we're aware of one concern, and that's eventually going to be how we resolve the policy. I don't know.
So are you taking this back to the Parks and Conservation
We had not
Advisory
planned
Board?
to, no. That was, their recommendation was to not move forward to allow the dogs to run. I mean, they're advisory to you, so.
yeah. Well, I have, I have a little bit different take on it, so I'd certainly like to at least perhaps hear at a workshop some conversation about it and see if there's any other interest. And again, to Jill's point, I'm not suggesting or even promoting that we let dogs run wild all over the park. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about providing an outlet for folks. And there are more than one people that are interested in this by the numbers that use Dunedin's park. But it's not like it's thousands, So I certainly wouldn't take my dog of 6 months old to the park and let it run wild. It doesn't listen to anything. So clearly, there has to be some some expectation of training on the dog's part. So anyway.
We'll have Paul come in, because, he hears all the sides of that, and he can also speak to the staffing issues. We're trying to get a park ranger in each park right now, and they clean bathrooms, they set up shelters, they have full plates of duties, and so I'm sure there's been some resistance to change it simply because of the staffing issue, but that's not the only issue. And so he can really speak to those and have that conversation with you, and then you can decide, if you want to take it further, then we can certainly look at it.
But it's not a dog park, it's just a fenced area that's
Well, a dog park,
designated?
yeah, dog parks that you're familiar with, it could be the size of this room, okay? I mean, it might be a little bit bigger.
Sure.
Depends on the dog park. The dogs that they're talking about doing is you're talking large areas. I mean, I'm not talking,
They don't want it fenced. They want it to have an area where you can free run.
Yeah, free run them. And if it
then we
meant.
have to manage it. Yeah.
So.
And it varies. I know City of St. Pete has some dog parks, like they have one that's kind of near the interstate that's very small, but there's one near me that is huge. I mean, it is basically free run.
It would
Oh, yeah,
enable
they
that
can-
kind of thing. So maybe it's the size of the dog park that we're talking
Yeah, could
about.
be.
So I know that particular park has a dog park. It's a smaller one versus what we're talking about, but, so maybe just some
have-
conversation
we'll have
about
Paul
that.
come in.
Thank you.
Anything else? And since we're talking parks, the Florida legislature passed a bill that allows local governments to regulate smoking on beaches, and Barry's got staff looking at how that would be implemented here, if that's a desire of the commission, and had conversations with our beach leadership as well, as far as what they're planning on doing in their respective communities. So we'll have more for that at a later date. All right, very good. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
All right, thank you.